been following mobile tagging for quite a while, and it's always been at the top of mind. And one of the key things that I really like to think about is just how you can use it for a purpose other than which it was originally intended. So how do you connect the metadata of a place with an experience that somebody's holding in their hands? So a lot of times people think of them as just traditional, oh, it's just a URL, and people often don't really consider the fact that that can be something like a really involved experience, or can actually have an effect on the environment they're in.
We worked with the Canadian Tourism Commission in the UK. We actually ran a program where we did newspaper wrappers, which looked like Facebook, which had QR codes integrated with them. And within 2 days, we had 15,000 scans. And it was phenomenal because the local markets didn't really think that it was actually going to work and get any engagement. And it totally blew their mind wide open.
One of the things I'd like to talk about is just the fact that a lot of times I think agencies and brands that want to use tag are not thinking about how the whole program looks. So right now, they might do something great on the back end and not think about the front end and how they're actually driving that traffic through to the tag, to the experience. So they're either building a great back end or a decent front end, but they're not making the two to come together. And I see agencies and clients both skimp on one side or the other. And what's happening is the left hand's not talking to the right hand, and then what we're giving to people is not meaningful enough, and they won't come back.
Microsoft's mobile tag and publishing has had some tremendous successes that have been published. And we see a lot of people using things that people are used to doing, so not trying to change people's behavior. So people that are used to doing data capture for sweeps, for contest entry, watching a video, downloading apps. Mobile tags can be used to drive what is a normal behavior and not trying to change their behavior, but it makes it easier and more fast, and more effective to do it using a mobile phone.
I think a mobile tag's a gateway to something. I don't think it just needs to be like a link to a website. I think it can be a gateway to an experience. It can help you donate some money. It can help you do a whole number of different things. I also think that it can also be a creative idea. It can be integrated as a creative idea. It could be the whole creative idea if you get really clever with things like Microsoft Tag. I think a lot of people think about QR codes, Microsoft tags, or whatever as just being this utilitarian thing that gets you to a website. I think it's something much, much bigger than that, and I think it will get bigger as mobile becomes the central part of every single experience that we try and create digitally, really.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'd categorize the three things that we just saw in the presentation there as one group is about sort of removing friction from fairly traditional means of marketing and marketing tricks like entering competitions or lottery type approaches. Second one is a good example of what Marissa Meyer said in her presentation yesterday, which I thought was excellent, which is your mobile is a cursor on the physical world. And I think tags represent a sort of well-known, well-adopted at this point means of activating that cursor. And then the third category I have for that pirate video is cool shit I have no idea how to get my head around. But I think those are the three things that I'd, to build on what Nick said, I'd add.
I think just one note real quick. I think at a higher level, ultimately mobile tags will be to mobile with the URL once to the internet.
Sorry, say that again, John.
Ultimately, they will be to mobile with the URL once to the internet. So there will be a symbology, and ultimately, we've seen that the phones and mobile devices are fantastic for browsing content and engaging in interactive social services. But ultimately, it's a fantastic direct response platform. Yeah. And mobile tagging is enabling that symbology to be put in print media or put in the physical world, and actually ultimately act as a shortcut to a variety of engaging interactive experiences.
I almost think of it as a metadata of a physical place. Like, what are all the things that you can't see or that might be present that you're not aware of, or what is sort of behind the covers, what is behind the scenes going on? This can sort of like be a way to help uncover that information or reveal that information through a lot of different mechanisms.
I like the idea of the tag being to mobile what the URL is to the internet. I think that links nicely to the creative idea, that you can actually create a character or something that's actually a visual cue for a brand. I think that's something that can have a lot of legs in terms of ideas for creative agencies as well.
Okay. Okay. John, you've been involved in exploring the mobile experience tags for a few years now for your agency, Nellymoser. And we, so you've been, I think, talking about use of this technology for a long time. And then suddenly we come to South by Southwest and everything's plastered in codes. I saw that, I went to a conference last week as well, and the place was full of tags and the brochures and everything else. Where are we at in terms of using tags as mobile marketing? Is it just still for the early adopters, or can we kind of reach out into the mainstream and talk to the mainstream with them?
I think clearly, I mean, a lot of the early adoption has been in the magazine publishing industry. And you've had phenomenal response rates. And basically, I think, this was brought up in the last panel, having people do things that they're used to doing, whether it's a contest, whether it's a product sampling, a hand raiser, opting in. If you use mobile tagging to make it easier to do things people were already doing, I think that's been an area, and we've seen, there's been hundreds, close to 60% of magazines in the top 100 magazines have used mobile tags in print. But in terms of adoption, we're seeing it, Target used it in their toy catalog. It's in retail, as people know from Best Buy, the shelf talkers. It's being used in the back of books. So I think people are starting to really start to adopt it. And, last year was about what is this funny little 2D symbol. This year it's really about how do you provide value and mobile engagement that's actually relevant. If you just link to a mobile site or link to a website, you'll lose the value and the resonance for the people. So it's all about now, how do you actually add extra value in making your physical or your print experience more interactive and actually create a one-to-one dialogue with the consumer in their mobile device.
We also know it's kind of a misnomer that if people don't already have the reader on their phone, they won't do it. I mean, we've seen amazing numbers on campaigns where maybe only 5% of people had a reader on their phone before they started. Mm-hmm. So people are, if you give them meaningful enough content on the back end and you give them something they actually want to do and engage in, they'll download the reader and then they'll scan and play or do what you're asking them to do.
Sure.
I think across multiple platforms, and mobile being probably the central platform for every platform, I think emotional content is something that's incredibly important. I think gone are the days where you're just providing information. You need to provide some utility. You need to provide some entertainment as well. But really, something with an impact has got emotion connected to it. I mean, as humans, we're like 95% emotion and 5% logic. So like we need to really play on that fact, really.
Exclusive content is key.
Yeah.
I think giving them something they can't get anywhere else and is really meaningful, and valuing that and making it aesthetic. And again, optimizing your mobile experience, not just leading to something on the internet, makes a big difference.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I look at these codes, and often they're QR codes around here, and I just don't want to scan them. I just don't think it's just going to take some crappy experience. I mean, I feel that the marketing industry still has to kind of raise the bar of what's going to be delivered when I do that.
When I got here yesterday, I was walking around and I was looking at all the posters. There was hundreds of QR codes, and there was one that even said free podcast at the top. Yeah. And like, really? I'm not going to scan that, It might be a really cool idea that takes me somewhere really magical, but it just failed. There was one poster that resonated for me, and as a guy, it just said, I like boobies, and it used the Facebook thumb, and it had the word boobies, and it had a QR code. And it just stood out because it was a really simple engagement mechanism. I scanned it, and then it took me to
interested.
It actually took me to a breast cancer foundation.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I think
so. Whilst it's a very base, Maslow's hierarchy of needs right at the bottom of it, right? it took me straight to something that was actually self-actualizing and very, very meaningful, and something I wanted to engage with. And I think sometimes we forget that we can be really simple as human beings and have this this Pavlov's dog response to certain things, right? But like the fun element of it, really does engage.
Yeah, I think also the other thing to think about is we're all having to feel our way through what we want these people to do in the mobile space, right? So I think if you look at smartphone adoption, iPhone, Android, I mean the way in which people have been using those, there's a bit of browsing, and then there's a lot of app usage as well. And so when we talk about where we as marketers are taking people with the tags, tends to be a site, tends to be a pretty good one. And I agree that's probably not always the most exciting thing in the world, but it is also what people are kind of doing on their phones themselves. You can't take them straight into an app they already have. So I think it's right. We need to make the content that we take people to as good as possible. We need to remember what people are already doing and the state of the mobile internet at the moment as well, and say, well, you know, the level's only there. We can't expect it to be up there. I think one of the interesting things that we found on our campaign that we did recently using Microsoft Tags was that we did get people using twice as much video as they had since previous things. So you're starting to see that how people use the mobile web change. Video is going to be obviously a huge part of that.
Yeah,
And so that was an interesting development.
I was talking to some video makers here from Missing Pieces, and we're talking about, you know, they currently make a lot of webisodes and great quality content, and the content has to change. A lot of people want to see videos when they click through and so forth, and obviously that has to change.
Well, you know, one of the earliest, Lucky Magazine, since February of last year, has been using video with editorial. You scan and watch a video, and that's really evolved over the last year. So, you know, you can make it very, you know, interactive by adding the video content. But now we just did the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and you can scan. So you go print to mobile to social. So you scan, watch a video, and then post it to Facebook or post it on Twitter. And so we're finding for the first time, like, integrated marketers can actually do integrated marketing, as opposed to just posting a URL in an ad. And so I think the video is a key aspect of this, but it has to do something. Most people, you know, when the video is done playing, it has to drive either to a click to purchase or a click to share or a click to find the nearest store. So I think that's where tying it all together is important. You can't just link to a video and then drop the person.
Okay.
Yeah, I think another interesting use case, like an example of the Pirata game, where you're actually using the tag as a part of your existing platform, your existing applications you're making. You know, you're sort of integrating sort of that experience in with something that somebody's already doing. So it sort of reduces the barriers that it takes for somebody to get into the experience. You can enhance that experience in ways that they may not have imagined previously. So.
Okay. I mean, tags still feel a bit bolt-on. Here's your nice ad and here's little, you know, tag at the bottom that I like the phrase you use, like action code. It like allows you to go and do something, but still feels like afterthought. It's a URL or a Facebook like the icon at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, but it's playing the role it should play. I want to just be a little bit defensive on that.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, the media investment that our clients often make in buying a print ad or putting the collateral out in the world, I mean, that's there to deliver a message to either, you know, awareness, drive purchase intent, or whatever. And I think then the tag has a very specific role within that overall communications, and it's pretty much a considered role, which is it's the thing you use to, you're probably choosing it as the most frictionless way of driving the next action. So, you know, URL's not great in print because you require, you know, going from here and actually typing. You know, tag just makes that a bit more frictionless. So, I mean, I don't think we can ever expect tags to become front and center of ads, because you know, the ad is always going to be probably trying to do something else. I did like that example recently on the subway in New York with JetBlue. You're starting to see the aesthetic of the tag start to become the center. You guys have seen this, but it becomes like
debate about that.
The center of they've taken the aesthetic of the tag and sort of made it colorful, and they put it in the center of the poster. It's no longer actually scannable when they did that, but it looks all very modern and trendy. And then the other questionable thing they did is they put that on the subway, which makes scanning something a little bit trickier when you don't have a signal. So
I have to beg to differ, though, because I think that Acura did a really amazing campaign where they actually art-directed Microsoft Tag and custom tags into the center of their ads. And they've also done it in their brochures, and they're running like 8-page ads with the Microsoft Tag in the middle of a big, giant photograph. And they've done it beautifully from an art direction standpoint. The communications there. Obviously, it's not an afterthought or a, if you don't want to read this ad, go here. It's actually part of the concept, and you have to scan while you're reading it if you're interested.
Right.
No, but that gives you better response rates. I mean, we see this.
Right.
People because we've done retail campaigns, and if the designer tries to shove the tag at the bottom of the poster and the call to action in 12-point font, a huge poster, you'll get smaller response rates than people that actually integrate it into the experience. And it's just clear, like, you know, we can see this on a page. We track. We keep a database of all the tags that are used in the top 100 magazines, and we keep the quadrants of where they're put. If you do one tag on the gutter of page 37, and it will not get the same response rates as someone that
I
has
want
a
to go to
consistent call to action.
the back. You might want to say something about what the JetBlue ad?
I had a question before the Q&A
I think John can.
I could talk about that. So
let me just repeat that question. So the question is about actually effectiveness. It's very well us talking about having them, it's within the creative, but do they work?
yeah, so I'm going to answer that in several ways. So I can actually give you specific data around SMS, but in general, you know, there's certainly lots of bad tag campaigns that get less than 1% response rate. If you don't clearly communicate to the reader or your audience, like what's the call to action, why is it valuable, you'll have worse response rates. But we've seen 5 to 15% response rates out of magazines for contests. Even newspapers like AM New York did a giveaway. We've run stuff from a number of magazines, and your early adopters actually are not like a high-tech geek audience. Most women's magazines, This Old House, Traditional Home, Lucky, Allure, get very good response rates. Now, to your question about SMS, we found for people that are 35 and older, adding SMS gives you a 25% lift, so it's complementary, and we recommend early on you can use it in conjunction with mobile tagging. For younger audiences, like we've seen a lot for Teen Vogue and 17 magazine, they're more split, like they'll do both SMS and tagging, but people that are 35 and older are now very used to downloading apps, and it's not a lot of friction. And in fact, the response rates, if you look at the scan and send technologies, which don't require app downloads, intuitively you'd say, well, it can support any phone that has a camera phone, and they should have high response rates, but it's not true. The highest response rates have come out of Microsoft Tag, and if you give a compelling reason, like a contest, a sweeps, a giveaway, or some good content, people will download the app and they'll scan. And the Allure numbers, it's over 400,000 scans at a rate base of 1.1 million. I mean, that's phenomenal, and you can see that over the past year. It started, Golf Digest was getting 50,000 scans a year ago. Sports Illustrated last February got 100,000 scans. Allure got 400,000 scans, back in the fall or plus. Anyways, I'm happy to.
Anybody else have any kind of?
Well, I think that one thing just to build on is one of the reasons I think Microsoft Tag technology has had more scans than any other QR campaign that we know of is because of the consistency. There's one reader, and it's, basically, it's colorful, so people can say that's beautiful or that's not beautiful, but it definitely is intrusive, and people know what it is, and the triangles are a specific pattern, and it's an easy get, and once people download the reader, even if they're downloading it for that particular campaign, it works. It's super flexible. Basically it can be ripped and torn, and low light conditions, you can move your hand while you're scanning, and the Microsoft Tag reader works. And there's very few other technologies in the QR reader code world that work as well.
Okay.
I think coming back to conversion, it's like you've got to give someone a reason to believe and a reason to do an action. So you can't just look at the tag or URL in isolation from the overall movement or campaign that you're actually trying to mobilize. You actually need to do something that's going to make someone actually react and actually scan that or whatever. Recently in Vancouver, we just had the year anniversary of the Winter Olympics, and we were going to give away a whole bunch of money from the Canadian Tourism Commission to the Canadian Olympic Committee. Pretty cool stuff. How did we do it? Well, we didn't just put a code on something, we didn't just run an event. We actually put the QR code, bang smack as the maple leaf in the middle of a Canadian flag, and gave them out to everyone that went to this event. And we got lots of response, and we were getting, we were driving people to like the fan page, so we could then give $1 to the Canadian Olympic Commission. So if you give someone a reason to believe in something very emotional, and I will come back to emotion again here. Canadians really love the Canadian flag, and in the Winter Olympics, it was from what I understand as a Brit. Canadians were quite reticent about being very proud about their country, but it's something that they actually became very, proud of, like wearing gloves with it on and hats with it on. But this kind of campaign actually then, resonated with them at that point in time, and we actually generated a lot of interest. And we were getting just over about 1,000 likes a day from that point forward because of the PR and the press and the interest it actually caused. So I think conversion is one thing. How effective is it? But I think if you just don't have something cool to talk about and something that's really gonna impact people like now and in 3 weeks' time and in 2 months' time, I think conversion's kind of like a side fact of everything in sort of the campaign movement world,
There was one thing that John said that I'd just add emphasis to. For anyone in the audience who is thinking about doing a campaign, don't presume that you know who is going to to click the tags. To the point that he was making, we discovered that as we put these tags into the marketplace, first thing we heard was there's a perception that they add a sort of modernity and a freshness to the work that you do, so that was a good reason to keep them in. We did them on a test basis and actually deployed them across everything, so there's a sort of perception delivery there, but also single largest determinant of how many people clicked on an ad was actually the household income of the publication that we were in. So we might have thought going in that a technology-savvy male magazine like Wired would have outperformed Real Simple. In fact, it was completely the opposite. So people like John can help you understand what audiences will click, but it may not be the ones you're expecting.
Yeah. Very interesting. Let's touch upon the app issue. You know, when will this start to get integrated into other apps, so forth? Right now, you have to have a special app. I have my AT&T app, I have my Microsoft Tag app, and stuff like that. Will we see kind of integration of this technology into Foursquare or whatever it is? You know?
Yeah, it's happening already. I mean, we're developing a third-party app right now, so I think that you know, it's imminent before you're going to be able to be a brand and run the scanner behind your brand app and whatever you're developing.
I think more than an app, I think it's going to be about device first and foremost. I think the tipping point for this to become wildly successful is that, you know, Android devices, iPhone devices, like Microsoft devices, I know some have got it already built in terms of recognition. If it's de facto standard, you've got multiple readers can be read by multiple devices, and you just literally need to pull out your pocket and point it and click it. I think that's going to be the tipping point, and I think that's when it will become omnipresent in applications and experiences in the physical world as well as online.
I thought you were discussing more like the SDK, the fact that you could actually be a brand and build behind it.
You know,
Okay.
Yeah, I think you know, you're going to see is now that you can embed the tag into an app. I think a lot of brands are going to have that because it's just a feature, like a check-in or a scan is just something. It's a feature. It's not the ultimate experience. And right now, you have to use this separate app. And I think you'll see a lot of innovation as it becomes integrated into the brand experience. It's just a secondary thing. You can scan, you can interact in retail, with print magazines, and then have a lot of interactive experiences that are integrated right into the brand and the app experience itself. So, one comment that was made before about, I just wanted to touch on this, there's a fantasy that, oh, you don't need these 2D codes, we'll just wait for image recognition or near-field communications. You're still going to need a symbology. I have to know that I can scan things in the world. I can't just go around and randomly scan things. I can, I'll be a little frustrated. But so there's going to be some symbology. There's a human factors element of this that you have to have a call to action. And so actually, if you just scan a logo, you can't embed the kind of information. I mean, maybe through watermarking or something. But these 2D codes, mobile tagging allows you to embed information. Sure. It's very relevant. And just take one example, like the check-in. You're actually scanning a tag is actually a more hyper-local experience than an actual check-in like a Foursquare. Because Foursquare, you have to rely upon a database and a general geo-target. But a tag is actually extremely local. You can actually know that I scanned this table in this restaurant at this time, and it creates a lot of opportunities for hyperlocal marketing and
sure. I was thinking
engagement.
that tag would allow me to check in much quicker than Foursquare.
And NFC,
absolutely.
NFC too, like there will be a use for it. I think the challenge is there's a lot of cases where NFC is going to be really inconvenient, or it's going to be not necessarily as good of a solution. Where I have to be physically fairly close to the reader. I can't take a picture of something that's 40 feet away, or like I can with mobile barcodes. So the flexibility that gives and the cost. Eventually, you'll be able to print things like RFID tags. People have already done some of that. Printing with like organic inks on actual labels, so you can actually like print your own RFID tags. But until that becomes like a super mainstream thing, you can already get a lot of that functionality already through 2D barcodes. So it becomes a very, very cost-effective way with the SDK to create them, on the back end, and also the ability to integrate them into your own applications. It's sort of it's something that you can take advantage of immediately.
Sure.
I think John's point was interesting, just because we keep getting calls from agencies saying we want image rec now. Can you help us? And the reality is, sure, it's available, it's out there. I mean, Google has goggles, but I was watching Marissa's speech yesterday where they talk about the bird. You can just scan the bird, and we'll tell you where the bird is. Well, realistically, human behavior is not there yet. So as much as agencies, I think ad agencies specifically are way ahead of where human behavior is. So you're going to need something to point to what is scannable. And I think the symbol of the tag is the first step, and then it will evolve to something smaller and smaller and smaller to the point that you get image rec.
I think in the previous panel we talked about changing people's behavior so that they start acting differently. I actually think, I get your point, John, about you need to show that something's taggable. But I actually think it'd be really cool if, like, in the future you look at optical recognition and you can scan a whole advert and it'll take you to the advertising, the website and the experience. You can scan a person's face and it will take you to their LinkedIn profile or like their own website or something like that, so that we actually change the human behavior so we can scan whatever we like and that will take us to the relevant content related to that. It's sort of, you know...
I think it's a great idea, but
yeah, I don't think it's there yet, but I think it could be cool.
My key thing about the behavior is the fact that you're scanning, you know, is requiring one change of behavior. So don't try to change multiple behaviors at once. So that's why I'm saying, like, people know how to do things like enter sweepstakes, sign up for things, like something, watch a video. Keep that behavior normal. Let mobile tagging allow you to do something that you already do, but in a better, more efficient, fast, effective way. So that's my thing. In the short term, that's the thing. But ultimately, you can change. Lots of behavior will start to evolve and change when you get this concept that you can use your phone to engage with the world in a variety of, methods and forms of interaction.
It's kind of a conundrum because it's normal behavior to look at something and recognize it, but there's lots of technology in between that makes it really difficult to do it, right?
Absolutely.
And that's where the step change in behavior comes.
And what does it mean? What is the expectation too? Like,
Right.
how do you know what you're supposed to be getting or what that experience is? I mean, that's definitely a hard part, and the idea of an affordance that sort of gives you a cue. I think that's a good way of describing it, where you have some sort of expectation out of the gate as far as what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right, in the sense that that has been in some way curated. I struggle a little bit with sticky bits, which conceptually I'm very excited by and go, God, you could do amazing things with that, but what do I get back when I scan a can of Coke? And it's a really big range of quality and quantity of actual content. I don't think that's useful. So again, I do like the point about symbology, and there's an expectation this will be kind of directed and managed.
Yeah, and it'll allow the world to be self-describing. I think mobile tagging is the beginning that, right now, like if you want to, interact with your consumer product, like your grill or your remote control, you have to go find some manual or go online or find some physical thing that's going to tell you about that thing. But now with having a phone and the ability to tag things, you can actually scan objects and they can describe themselves and tell you how to make it easy to engage with them. Here's how to use me. Here's how to get something else. Here's how to find more people. Here's how to find ratings. I mean, just the whole ability to engage the world and have it describe itself to you is real exciting, and we're just at the beginning of that. And
I was actually curious about the statements about image recognition not being available. In fact, I did a project 3 years ago, there and used image recognition as a means of essentially doing the same thing. So it's there and it worked just fine. In fact, I work at a brand consultancy, so from my point of view, it's about what does the brand do. And it seems like if I'm a company and I'm a brand, I'm trying to develop my image and my point of view. Sticking one of these things that is essentially more of a symbol that I have a certain cachet of technology understanding seems like more of a co-opting than it is a benefit, right? It's basically, I put this tag on my product and I'm basically saying, I understand what QR codes are, but am I actually delivering a greater product to my customers when there is a certain level of image recognition available, and you could simply say, hey, tag this thing.
Okay, that's a nice discussion point.
I mean, the only thing, I agree, you can do watermarking and image recognition, but if you're going to do that call to action, I mean, I think it depends on what the experience goes to when you scan. I mean, certainly people are using it for caching. They'll put a 2D barcode just to show that I'm hip and I know about the world. But you can actually deliver valuable information through that you can't embed in an image recognition. An image recognition, ultimately, if you're recognizing a Coke logo, that logo is going to be the same everywhere. So when you scan it, you're not going to be able to embed any information in that. So all you're going to be able to do is link to the Coca-Cola website. Whereas the tag, you can actually have lots of keywords. So for every tag, even though it looks the same to user, I can have a tag, the same tag that slightly modified in every magazine, so I can know exactly which magazine that's being scanned out of, and I can do lots of things with that. Then I can route that to local reps. I can have a store locator that's much more customized. Just the image recognition alone doesn't embed the information that allows you to provide kind of a much richer experience. But your point is absolutely right, taking that all this technology is here in terms of
cost and time to market too, right? Like that's the other thing, that it can take a while to make that happen. You know, as far as I can actually create a tag and distribute it, or I can draw the tag out.
Yep.
I can do anything in like literally minutes. You know, I can sort of go end to end. So I guess it's just a strength benefit analysis.
Okay, another question.
I have a question that relates to the front end of things with the tagging. One of my concerns is that we're not really using tagging like you would in direct marketing, and you addressed this a little bit, about, for example, what time of day is it? What season is this? What are you actually about to do or buy or process? And it feels to me, I'd love for you to comment on, is it because we're so excited about the technology itself that we've thrown all the great rules of direct marketing out? Or we're not aware of them? How can we be more intelligent about what we're putting out there from actually what we put in the tag? Do you see what I'm saying? As far as
are you interested in the data behind it?
Yeah,
what
the
you're
data
going to learn
behind it,
behind
so we can find out actually if we put a different offer in a Lure magazine.
Yep.
Next time we actually got much better response, or we were actually able to personalize that tag. So we actually were able to find out that person actually did buy anything in the end. How can we be smarter about what we're doing? How can we use information to actually be smarter about what we're doing with tags?
And the interesting thing is some of that exists. I mean, right now there's device ID. So the first time someone scans, they get one message, and the tag knows they've scanned, and the second time they scan, they get a second message. So that data is available, as well as heat maps that will show regionalities. You could also do splits in magazines where you run a tag in one market and not in the other markets, or different tags in each market, and you can test campaigns that way. And I know Mark's done some of that and had really good results.
Yeah, we did.
Learning.
We did. I think there's two parts to it. The first part is the front end. How many people interacted with the ad was basically a vote in favor of the ad. So we were optimizing as we went through a 6 to 9 month campaign. We were going, okay, well that execution with that individual is not pulling in that magazine. Let's try something else. So that was like the front end, and so we were very mindful of changing those things where they were and weren't working. And then the second part was tracking their behavior once they had tagged. So what were they doing? You know, if we played this video first to them, a demo, were they likely to click on and do more things on the mobile web, or did they abandon? And what we tended to find is people took about 2 steps. We had 2 good mobile CLE sites built by the guys at Ansible. Yeah, people did go on. So my feeling was you can take learnings from the front end. You get all your day part information. In magazine terms, it's interesting to see where in the month it's been viewed versus when it appears on newsstand, and it stays in circulation for really quite a long time. So you've got a lot of kind of when and where people are scanning it that you get in the front end, and the back end you can do quite a lot of optimizing as well. So if that helps, you get a lot of data. What you do with it is entirely up to you.
Yeah, I mean, we recommend a whole test and learn cycle. So we're doing direct response stuff like direct mails for magazine, scan, sign up for the magazine. So testing what that call to action, it's all about the print experience at that point. So testing that, seeing what works, what draws the responses, that's just, right now it's just a test and learn cycle. The back end, like you said, there's a ton of stuff that you do, like as Robin mentioned, like for Martha Stewart, we did a sweeps where we did detect the device. So when you first scanned the Nordstrom's ad and then went to another retailer, we knew your device is already there, so we don't make you fill out the form again. We autofill it and give you something. So there's lots of great stuff you can do to adapt and customize the personalized experience in the back end. But in terms of getting your response rates up and treating this like a science, like you're suggesting, like direct marketing, it's all about how do you really think about the call to action, see what your response rates are, tweak it, and just iterate. And that's going to get, I think we're early right now. People haven't mastered that yet.
Okay. So 2 more questions. Anybody?
I'm just curious to know whether the term QR code is going to become the de facto generic for all these action codes, and if not, what are the differences between the barcodes? I mean, what does Microsoft Tag do that QR doesn't, and vice versa?
Well, QR is hard-coded, so the information that you're linking to is hard-coded in the actual code, and the Microsoft Tag is a pointer, so you can actually change the back end fluidly. So you can decide to put the tag, you create the tag, you put it in an ad, you can send it out and have no idea what it's going to connect to until the day before it hits newsstands. And then you can have created that experience and link it at the last minute, and you can change it dynamically all the time.
So is QR code the generic name?
The generic name, it's interesting. We hear people say it like they say Oreo cookie, so I think it's become, to some extent, de facto, but I think that there are people that refer to it as 2D barcode, And we're hoping Microsoft Tag, because it's a verb and it's a noun and you can tag it, it will become, you know, the future code.
I think the other thing that's really interesting to me, coming from a design and technology background, is the ability to really sort of push the limits on what you can do to customize it and make it look interesting and sort of hide it and sort of really play with the form factor of the tag itself. QR, you can do that. It's not as flexible as something like tag is by its sort of nature. And the fact that you can actually make it really small, the fact that I can make it a lot smaller and it's easier to read for the same amount of data or additional data. So to me, that's sort of been a fun part of playing around with them, is actually being able to experiment with them to a large degree, get art directors and creative people really sort of thinking about it and sort of seeing the light go off like, oh, I can do this, this, and that, and sort of seeing those experiments come out are pretty exciting. So.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, one last question.
Yeah, Robin was mentioning that Microsoft is working on an application, and I'm just wondering, can you go into that, or is that still into the future?
You mean the third party?
Yeah,
potential?
We have several applications we're shipping now that deal with allowing someone to create their own tags, obviously, and then host them and then present them in a template fashion. And of course, if Microsoft's developing something like that, it'd be interesting to know.
Well, right now you can go to the tag manager and make your own tags, and it's free and
right, sure, but that's for a novice, you know, someone who's not. I'll give you an example. We produce facility management software, and so we track information in a database, SQL Server database, and someone could go onto Microsoft's site and create the tags that tie back to our database, but we have an application that actually simplifies that for them. So,
well, yeah, we can talk about this offline. Okay. That'd probably be helpful.
Okay.
Thanks. Happy to talk.
Does anybody in the panel have any last comments?
I think we talked about the tag. I think we need to come back and think about the device as well. I really like the point about direct marketing, and I started thinking about, okay, the mobile device has got GPS, it knows where we are, it knows what time of day it is, it knows what we're scanning. Well, how can we make that intersect? And if I'm buying suntan lotion when I'm in Vancouver and it's a rainy November, and it cross-sells me to something that's relevant to my time and place there, versus me being in Hawaii and buying some more suntan lotion and it points me towards a bar across the street. I think we need to, you know, think about how the device is actually working with it as well as just the tag on its own. Right?
Without being creepy.
Without being creepy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Do you have one last question? The creepy question.
Personal information.
Yeah.
You guys reached consensus on what information you're allowed to draw from the device in order to make the experience more personalized. And I think that's where a lot of people are struggling, is the universal spectrum and the creepy.
So the question is, where is the line in terms of the privacy and the information you collect?
I mean, time and location to me seems absolutely relevant and okay. I mean,
and legal.
Yeah, and legal. Cellular networks know where you are. They have done for years and years and years. GPS allows us to know where we are. The time is the time. You know, so I think if you go down to name, occupation, age of your kids, I think we're in very, very bad territory. But in terms of...
And we're not allowed to know that yet unless you opt in.
The device ID isn't your phone number. It's a machine ID, so you can actually detect, oh, this person's coming back, but you still don't know anything about them in terms of, you know, their other data. Like Robin says, you have to do the standard opt-in or double opt-in to be able to do anything back to that or to store the information. So it's still standard marketing practices and policies. It's just giving you some coordinates that allow you to kind of customize a personalized experience.
Super.